Okay, so in today's Daily Cyber, Cyber Live, I'm going to be talking a little bit about cybersecurity, what I've been working on, and just have some conversation about what's been going on in the industry. So it's going to be really exciting to get back at doing podcasts and doing this live and be able to chat with the community. So let's hack at it. So hey everyone, how's everyone doing with the podcast or so the pandemic going on and everything that's happening? Depending on where you're watching this, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on YouTube, you're on Twitch, I got a chat window going so you can be able to send me messages. Now on LinkedIn, I'm going to be monitoring through there. You can see me looking kind of left and right. I'm going to be monitoring kind of the chat there and just see what's going on. But on YouTube and Facebook, if you're on those, you can actually chat in the chat window and I can see it live and answer any questions that you guys might have as we're going through. So just so you know, this is going to be just an hour, a quick hour of having conversations about, cybersecurity and what's going on in the industry and just kind of keep everyone up to date on what I'm working on, what I'm seeing as well. I'm also going to get back into having interviews of experts. If you check out my YouTube channel, you'll see I was doing some tests last night with Neil, who's a colleague of mine, expert in cybersecurity, and we've been talking about just kind of what's been going on in the industry and just really having some in-depth conversation. So check out the channels. Go to YouTube right now. Haven't been able to get LinkedIn subscribed yet into the LinkedIn Live yet, and the reason why that I'm waiting for LinkedIn to approve my application. And I don't know if you guys have been trying to do the live yourself, but LinkedIn has taken some time to get the approval. So things have been going well there, getting up and going live again, kind of getting the podcast going. As you can tell, I changed a little bit. You can kind of see the scene here on the layout. So everything's been updated just to kind of give a new look and feel and give more value. So just again, to give you a recap of everything that's going on. So yeah, if you have the chat, message me, let me know kind of what you're working on. Today, I'm just going to really kind of do more of a catch up on the things that I'm seeing and what's going on in the industry. Just give me a second here. Got some messages here. So, yeah, it's good to kind of be back and being able to do some podcasting and really kind of get out there and help the industry. I'm going to be doing this every Monday at 12 Eastern Standard Time in the afternoon, just to kind of, get that lunchtime for some people, not all, but some people, so that you can be able to come out, maybe have some lunch, listen about cybersecurity, and just have it kind of playing in the background. Or if you have time, you can get engaged and have a conversation with us. So let me talk a little bit about what I'm seeing in the industry and through the pandemic. I'm seeing right now a little bit of an uptick of companies now getting back on their feet. Things are really kind of happening in the sense of companies are now looking at getting back in the office, looking at, their supply chain, their customers. They're looking at, different ways. I know in Toronto, we've gone through phase 1, phase 2, and it's kind of really growing out in the sense of now, like for myself, I've been going to a few restaurants and, getting my hair cut, restaurants, kind of the social aspects of it, and the protocols are all there to be able to do that. So it's been good that way. So now kind of getting back into the normal swing of things, where you're starting to see that people can now kind of, go back to day-to-day activities, where before, as you guys know, and as you're experiencing, you're kind of having this challenge of, can you go out? Where can you go out? Do you need your mask? Do you need that? Like, and all that stuff. And then don't get me wrong. Like, I know in Toronto, a lot of places that you go, you have to wear a mask. And it's just kind of really challenging that sense where, you can wear a mask, but you got to make sure you have everything that's there, right? In the sense that, you have your mask, you're 6 feet in distance, you make sure you're following protocols. I know some stores, they only let so many people in the store at a time. So it's kind of one thing after another. Like, you just kind of have to go through these processes and procedures right now to be able to do that. And how this relates to cybersecurity is that companies are now taking security protocols and things like that as they're going through the day-to-day, how many employees they can have in their office, and, acceptable use policy and what systems and solutions they can use. So it's a lot of things that are going on that sense. So it's interesting to see kind of everything going back into the swing of things, and just everyone kind of looking at, the new day-to-day operations and everything that we're working on. So it's really interesting on that side. Just give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just had to close my door. A lot of activity going on at my place. So just give me a second here. Okay, so I just want to do a check, make sure everyone can hear me, can see me okay. I'm just getting some messages that some things are not starting. If you're on Twitch, let me know if you can see everything. I have a colleague that's just sent me a message just saying, hey, I can't see you on Twitch. But on YouTube, everything. YouTube, Facebook, you guys good to go? Let me know. Send me a message. Give me a second here. Okay, perfect. I think everything's good. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in the cybersecurity industry and what's going on right now. I mean, we're seeing a lot of, different challenges in the sense of, and I'll talk kind of what I'm seeing. So cybersecurity awareness training is one thing that I'm seeing that more companies are implementing. And I've talked about this before. I'm going to kind of reiterate and keep going over and over again. It's the cybersecurity awareness training of the people at home, not just the employees, right, in your company, but also the family members and anyone that has access to that network. One of the challenges I'm starting to find, and I'm starting to hear more of, is that because people are at home and they have VPN and they may have endpoint protection, they have security on their devices. So it might be their iPhone, it might be their laptop. But what happens is we're not securing as security professionals, looking at this and looking at kind of the protocols and the security plan, the roadmap, is we're not looking at the family. Little Jimmy, little Jane, they're sitting at home, they're on their devices. They might be on Facebook or social media, and there might be malware on there. You might have other family members that are on the internet, might be doing things that they should be doing, in the sense of day-to-day activities, Facebook, social media, or they might be looking at, sites that maybe they're not, sites that would be blocked in corporate and organizations. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, and now you have those guys clicking on things and going through the network. And then what happens is, as they're going through the network, right, of the home network with the modem and it's being transferred, if they get malware and they click on that and it goes through the whole network, that home PC might get infected, right? There might be key logging, there might be malware, something along that line that now, companies have to kind of look at going, okay, well, how do we protect against that? And then one is cybersecurity awareness training. And then mostly the companies have licenses for that. So you can get the whole family to do it. You don't have to extend your license or increase that, but you just get the family to watch the videos and go through the course, right? And the training to make sure they're up to date. And the next is, securing, and you guys are all doing this through your VPN and your proxies and all that and looking at your security on that side, but locking that down and making sure everything secure on that point to protect it. And so that's a little bit of the conversation that I've been having when it comes around like cybersecurity, for cybersecurity awareness training. Next is talking about, cloud security. Cloud security, and we've had this conversation yesterday, and I was on the live stream with Neil yesterday, and a colleague of mine was chatting as well, is talking about cyber, like the cloud security. So one is the shared security model, right? Most people know this, but if you don't, right, most like Amazon, Azure, these providers of cloud solutions have what they call is a shared security model, which basically means is that for the hardware, the data center, the infrastructure, that company, Amazon, Azure, all that does all the security. But then when it comes down to the actual, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, all that you're putting on there, that's, the company's responsibility to lock that down and secure that. So it's really important to look at that aspect of it, is to make sure that your security, as you're putting things onto the cloud, are secure. You have the right technology to secure it and monitoring tools, but you also have the policies and procedures to make sure that you're following up and you're doing your proper guidelines, and then doing proper tests, right? After you implement something, do some sort of test to do that. So it's a vulnerability test, maybe it's a penetration test, whatever that may be, test it to make sure it works properly, because the one challenge that you'll run into is that if you set up properly, or you have a third party like an MSP or someone set it up, you need to have it validated. And if you don't do that, you don't know if there's any opening holes or any gaps that you're going to be potentially breached on. So something to really look at. Rod just commented, friends that come over using their wireless. So just a quick question for you, Rod. Are you talking about like if you have colleagues or friends coming over, they have to look at that as well? Is that what you're saying? And if that's what Rod's saying, I'm just going to kind of wait till Rod replies. But that's also a good point too, right? Because people have like their family, their friends, coming over, and they might be sharing their Wi-Fi with them, and they're just connecting to it like that on their iPhone, just because they don't want to use their data and they're just being friendly. But you don't know what that person's bringing into your home network, right? And if that's what Rod's saying, he's making a very good, valid point, is that we have to look at all areas of security now, because the attack surface in the landscape now is completely changed, right? Where most, employees were in-house, right? Not all, but most of them were in-house, that the security was there, is more controlled. Now, because people now are working from home, the security is completely changed. And it's made it hard, right, for what I consider is like IT security management to really start to look at planning this and properly planning this. Because something that I was talking about yesterday is the CIA, the confidentiality, data integrity, and availability. When you're looking at that, a lot of times with security, they lock things down, right? It's confidentiality, make sure the integrity of the systems as well as the data is protected, but then availability starts to be locked down, so they don't have the access they used to. And then now employees are not able to do the work, they get frustrated. And one of the challenges I've heard was when you talk about data, is clients are like, well, it's so hard for me to get data. So now I have to log in, I have to do VPN, I have to do that, and I have to wait, and then it takes so much time, and then I have to go to this directory. So I'm just going to download this data. I'm going to put it on my local hard drive. I'm going to put it on my flash drive, or maybe even a local hard drive, just so I can have easy access. Well, that circumvents the data protection, the security that's in place. So now you're going through that and kind of going, okay, what do I need to do, like as a company? So now companies now go like, this is frustrating, I'm going to lock this down. So now they lock that down even more, and now the employees now start to try to circumvent that security. So you got this yin and yang, right, that keeps going back and forth. So it's very important to look at, as a top-down approach, is your security measures and your protocols and how it's going to affect your company. And now we're looking at this, and as I go through my discussions day in and day out now, we're having these discussions and bringing in subject matter experts to really have this discussion of like, what do you need to do and what is doable, right? What is doable for us to be able to make sure that you as a company, as an organization, are able to protect yourselves, right? So it's so important right now to be able to look at things in a very top-down methodical way of strategy when it comes to security. And I mean, the first, when the pandemic first started, one of the challenges that I was seeing is that companies were making these changes overnight, right? And these things were on their roadmap for 1 year, and it became that they had to do this very quickly, right? So when it came to that very quickly, what happened is they were like, okay, we were doing cloud security. We're looking at implementing our cloud solutions, and now we're going to be doing this in the next 2-3 days, where we were going to plan this out over the next 6 months to 1 year. So there's a lot to think about there. And this is why, the great thing about working with the company that I do, Use Auto, is we're going out now and we're talking to companies more and more and having these conversations. So it's so important to have that. I'm just going to jump back with Rod. Rod says home network security. Friends that come over using the wireless, he's talking about his home network security. So Rod, I'm going to ask you, what are you doing right now to protect your home network security? I would assume that you're working from home. What are the measures that you're taking? Just give me a second here. I got another message here. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, just a lot going on with your home network and home security. And Rod is bringing up a great point here, right? When it comes to home network, home security, something that we really need to look at. I mean, in all different levels of, the company, the organization, as well as when you're looking at employees and the home. And we have to be educated to do that. So it's so important to do that. Cloud security, very important. And then when we look at, compliance is something that I've been talking about more and more now, and going out and having these conversations is, as you're going through compliance, right, and different types of compliance challenges, right, what we're looking at is, where do you sit on that? Do you have compliance that you need to meet now, immediately, is something that you're doing a certification and you're working towards that? Or is it something that you have to, renew? Right, 2 different areas of compliance, on a broad area, and then you have to manage that right now, and then you have to look at what aspects of compliance are you needing to meet, right? And for example, do you have the security measures that are in place that your compliance protocols are saying that you have to do, and have they been changed or modified since the pandemic? Has it completely changed your compliance and everything that you're working on? Now you have to go back and review it. And I'm looking at governance, policies, procedures, documentation, business continuity, disaster recovery, instant response. Again, I was talking about this yesterday with a colleague, and I've had this conversation a few times. Is about, companies have to now review all of those documents because things have changed, right? Suppliers that they might have used, partners that they work with, their business, that you have a partnership with might have changed because of the pandemic. And what does that look like? Is there SLA different? Is there support? Is there response different? Are those companies still in business, right? You need to check those things out. Knock on wood that they still are in business and things are still going well. But then what happens is, if they're not, what do? You now have to make sure that your business continuity is still going, right? That you still have the support that you need. You still have the IT infrastructure. You still have that going on. So something to really look at and really to think about. So a lot going on, in my opinion, when it comes to cybersecurity, a lot of changes. And then you've got the growth, everything that we're always working on, right? You're working on endpoint protection. You're looking at security. You're looking at pen testing for the end of the year. We're coming up soon. It's right now August 31st. We're getting into September. A lot of companies now are doing their kind of planning for the year-end vulnerability tests, penetration tests, things like that. So a lot going on right now, a lot going on with the industry. So, hey, Rod, thanks so much again for your comments. Let me know if you have any questions. Comment below. If anyone else is watching that, I'm watching the feed. I just got a message from Dominic Vogel, who's a VCSO, real amazing expert, colleague of mine. He's just saying awesome. So a lot going on. You can see I kind of got a couple screens here. I'm looking between just to see how things are going on. But a lot's happening in the cybersecurity industry, and I love to kind of have this conversation with you guys just to see how you guys are doing. Now, I know for me, some of the conversations, again, just to kind of go back to that I'm having with companies now, is the overwhelm feeling that a lot of senior level executive IT professionals are having and just being burnt out. I know there's a lot of breaks going on right now that people are taking vacations just because now things are starting to slow down, which is great. People need to recharge, rest and recharge. So it's really important. And then as they get back into the swing of things, I'm sure what we're going to find is now this uptick of projects and things they need to get done, they need to get completed by the end of this year, and then just make sure that they're getting done, of course, depending on their budgets, depending on what's going on. So Rod's asking for visitors using Wi-Fi are in a DMZ. Every device has endpoint security. So that's what you're implementing when it comes to security. That's good. It's good that you have that. Sometimes you can set up VLANs as well, depending on your modem and what you have. ISPs, some ISPs, like I'm just going to use like Bell, Rogers, all that, do have segregation of networks sometimes, so you can do that as well. But again, you just got to be careful because, I mean, hackers are hackers. They're pretty smart. And if they can, suss out the network and be able to get through that, they're going to be able to do that. And that's why I had a colleague, Neil, on, and I'm going to have him on again. He's a good friend of mine. And you can ask those type of questions because he's very technical when it comes to penetration testing and compromising networks. He's got a lot of experience and background. And when I had this conversation with him about just, the different things that hackers can do, it's phenomenal how these guys are so intelligent and what they can get through. So you do your best. You put your layers in, you put your security in, and you do that. Next I want to mention is ransomware. Ransomware is something also that I'm hearing more and more about, and you guys are seeing it in the news, right? And you're in different feeds, is that ransomware is becoming rampant of what hackers can do, even script kiddies, when it comes to ransomware, just because, it's not as complicated as it used to be of writing code and doing all that. And I was talking to Neil about this last night. And if you want to check out the previous podcast or stream live /podcast, there's actually help desks. There's help desks to support these people that are actually running them, right? 24/7 help desk. So if they want to get ransomware, they want to run it, there's support staff that, if you're not getting the success you want, it's not running properly, here's what you need to do. So some of the people that are selling these are actually supportive in the sense of ransomware and things are going on. So when you're looking at our side of, protecting the network, protecting the companies, you got this kind of battle going on of the, I don't want to say like a corporate environment strategy of, they have a sales process, they have support networks, they're selling a product and service. So it's literally a business, how to compromise companies. And on the other side, it's a business on how to protect companies. So we're constantly in this battle of going back and forth and of working through this. So it's pretty interesting to be in the community and be in cybersecurity right now, how things are changing so fast and the things that are going on. So that's kind of a recap of what I'm seeing, what's going on my side. Rod, I'd love to hear kind of what you're seeing, what's going on yourself. Anyone else that's watching this, depending on LinkedIn, if it's on YouTube, if you want to comment, you can go on YouTube. I've got a live chat that's there. Go through it. Let me know. Let me know what you're dealing with, what questions you have, what topics you want me to cover when it comes to cybersecurity. I think it's really important. Like I said, I'm going to have some experts on the show. Live, just reaching out to a couple colleagues and just to be able to talk about what they're dealing with, what they're seeing, right, and to give you guys a little bit more value about what's going on in the network and what's going on in the industry, because I think it's important really to see the difference of different verticals, different industries, what the people are seeing, so that we can all kind of work collaboratively to protect, ourselves, our companies, and everything that's going on. So a lot going on. Give me a second here. Just kind of looking through, seeing if there's any comments. Nope, no comments there. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm seeing, what's going on. One thing also I want to just reiterate and share with you. I'll also be going through the news as I start to progress. This is going to be every Monday at 12 p.m. Just a reminder, subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to follow me on LinkedIn as well. Just kind of connect with me there. Out of those two, you'll be able to connect and be able to see that. I know I'm on Twitch right now. There's a little bit of technical difficulties on Twitch. But I know with the streaming right now, one of my colleagues were saying that it wasn't going through properly. But I know with YouTube, it's streaming live right now, and I can see it on another screen. So subscribe. Make sure you click on the little bell on the top to get the notifications when I go live. Just so I can give you guys, a lot of information. Now, I will be talking about different products and solutions too. Trying to get some of my partners that I'm working with right now on the stream as well to talk about, what they're working on, what they're seeing as well, just to give you guys more information, more value, because I think it's really important to give you guys as much information as you can, because there's just so much to learn, so much to cover when it comes to cybersecurity. So give me a second here. Yeah, so if you guys have questions, just make sure you comment on YouTube. I know someone just asked me now. Just text me privately. So just a lot going on. I'd love to hear what you guys are dealing with and what you guys are seeing. If you guys would like to share this out too to your network and your colleagues too, I'm going to try to get as many people on here as possible, right, and just be able to give value. I know I'm going to ask Dominic, and I'm going to pick on him right now. I'm going to probably get him and his partner on the podcast. Also looking at one of my partners that's a lawyer, right, and talking about cybersecurity law. I'm going to be reaching out to them, and hopefully in the next week or so, I'm going to have them on, or next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm going to have them on the podcast to talk about cybersecurity law, something that he specializes in. So a lot to cover. So I'd love to, again, we're coming up to 12:30 right now. I'm going to be more prepared next week on some cybersecurity news and things that are going on. This week, I really didn't cover that just because I wanted to start getting this podcast out, really get back into the swing of things and covering things that will help both myself as well as you guys, keep connected and understand what's going on in the cybersecurity world. Just so much. It's just crazy. There's so much that's going on. I'm just looking at my Feedly right now, just to look at, the different news feeds that are happening here. And just give me a second here. Let me pull this up so you guys can see this. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to see just all the things that are going on right now when it comes to cybersecurity, companies being compromised. Yeah, just trying to get this pulled up here for you guys so you guys can see the screen that I'm looking at right now. There we go. Just resize this for you guys. Okay, so now you guys can kind of see the screen that I'm looking at right now. I got my Twitter account here, but yeah, you can see through my podcast, I'm like constantly looking at, cybersecurity feeds and what's going on. And we can see the difference between, just a lot of happening. Like Canada Revenue Agency shut down servicing after the pen test. And I'm going to pull that up because after cybersecurity attack. So then I think that's important to look at, right? We're having so many breaches right now, so many companies being compromised, right? Especially because the attack surface has changed, right? So Cybersecurity Revenue Agency shut down service after cyber attack. And you're looking through this article, the Canadian Revenue Agency temporarily halted operations after discovering 2 cyber attacks on the systems where attacked exploited thousands of stolen usernames and passwords to illegally obtain government services and compromise Canadian data, as reported by CIBC. The attack affected the GC Key service, an online portal that allows Canadians to access government services used by the CRA in over 30 federal departments. Hackers compromised passwords and usernames of 9,041 CG Key account holders to access government services. In addition, about 5,500 CRA users' accounts were targeted in the incident, and authorities said. So you look at that, and then you look at just below 329,000 Canadians' data hacked. Recently, the Charter of Professional Accountants of Canada disclosed a security breach that affected over 329,000 members and stakeholders of the association. It is said that unknown hackers compromised the CPA Canada website and obtained information related to the distribution of its magazine, so the subscribers. The exposed information included names, home addresses, email addresses, and other sensitive information. However, CPA clarified that information like passwords and credit card information were protected by encryption. So let's talk about that a little bit. So you're talking about like two different breaches here right now, but you're looking at data and PII, right? Personal identifiable information. And when you look at personal identifiable information, you're looking at where is it stored, how is it stored, and the trust that we have as users, right, of these organizations, that they have our data protected, that it's not going to be compromised and sold on the internet. And I know one of the services that we have is a dark web service that we use that to scan the dark web to see kind of different compromises. And as you're doing that, you'll be able to pull up this information and see, if that's your company's employees, if they're using their business email address. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But you can see like what email addresses are, the username, passwords, the first name, last name, username, passwords, everything that's being used, potentially sold online. Now, it takes some time. It's not something that you're just going to see readily. It's actually something that, and from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, you actually have to wait until someone actually starts to sell it. So whoever's compromised the let's say CRA or the company, what happens is it goes through this process where now people are starting to collect it and then they turn around and sell it. When that comes up, there's companies that, that are doing scanning of the dark web, and they'll find the sellers and they'll find that list, and they'll get that list and be able to provide us, cybersecurity professionals that are helping people, that list, through a service. And then you're able to see, if your company's been compromised, if users of your company's been compromised, maybe your domain, you can see all the different email addresses and the people through that. So it's important to be able to understand that process. But then you get to see, when you're doing like a dark web search, you get to see what your employees are doing and what level. And that now leads back to cybersecurity awareness, right? They're using corporate information, corporate email address, right, and their company email address for websites. Maybe they shouldn't be. They should be using maybe a default or a free account like Gmail or Microsoft Live or whatever free account to be able to do other things. And when it comes to their business or their employee email address, they only should use it for work related access. Right. So I'm just going to use the charter of accounts, and I'm just not saying not to do it, but just I'm using them as an example. Say you're part of their newsletter, right? And then maybe you should be using kind of a default, account, be it info at, yourcompanyname.com, or maybe you should be using at, johndoe@gmail.com to sign up for this and then have it forwarded to your business account. So then what happens is if it ever gets hacked, it's a Gmail account. You probably don't have any, confidential information there, any personal. It's just maybe all your e-letters and email subscriptions you sign up for, and kind of maybe junk mail that you have in there, and all that can be on your online services. So then what happens if that ever gets compromised, it's not a big deal, right? It's not that big of a deal. So I'm just using that as an example. But then let's go back to data protection, data security. A lot of times we trust in these companies that, okay, when we're giving them our information, that it's going to be protected, it's going to be encrypted. Where you see the CPA, they said that the credit card information was encrypted. But my question is, data at rest, so the names, home addresses, email addresses, or other sensitive information, was that encrypted? Or if it was, how did they breach it? And if it wasn't encrypted, why not? All right, so kind of questions along that line. And I'd love to go into a little bit more conversation about that. Rod just asked me a question. It would be great to have a discussion on how we get corporations to look at security holistic versus point and fixing. So what I'm seeing, Rod, on my side, the bigger organizations, and this is just my opinion, are now starting to look more holistically, looking at all aspects of it. Right? And you have the VC and top-down approach, kind of looking at the big picture. Now, don't get me wrong. There's many different facets too. When you have business cases, you're looking at financial forecasting. You're looking at all different facets that take into consideration what they can do when it comes to security plans and security roadmap. But they're all trying to look at the big picture. They're looking at the organization as a whole. Now, I'd love to ask you, Rod, is that what are you seeing that they're missing? What are you seeing that, if they're looking at security holistically, right, versus fixing, what are you seeing that they're just fixing versus doing a holistic view? Comment below. I'd love to kind of hear what you think about that. So going back into these breaches and looking at the data protection, I think it's important to look at like how our data is stored. Right now, a lot of companies are being better at, like you look at even just websites, you look at HTTPS, right? So you're looking at how the data is actually now over encrypted protocols. So now it's more secure. But also you need to look at now is how is it at rest, So you're looking at motion, right, as is in transit. But now how is it being stored at rest? How can these hackers, and I'm sorry to pick on the charter professional account, how was that data not stored in an encrypted solution or some sort of CRM, customer relation management tool that was more locked down and secure? And that's just a question I have. I'm not saying they did anything wrong. I'm just saying just a question to put that out there. is, why wasn't it done in a secure solution that would have more layers of security? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that someone didn't compromise that. They did have a solution and someone compromised that. My question to that, then going back to that, would be, did they put in protocols or at least some sort of kind of assessment to be able to say, let's do a vulnerability test, let's do a pen test to make sure the system is secure? Did they trust in the company or do their research in that company to make sure there's a proper level of security? I think that's another thing that we have to look at, is that when we look at different types of layers of security is, if we have trust and we do transference of trust that, that company is secure, are we doing our due diligence to make sure it is, right? Or is it something that we're looking at and kind of going, you know what, they were secure. They said they have this 56-bit, 128-bit encryption on our data, and that's it. We trust them that they're going to do it. Now, did we do an evaluation to make sure that's the case? Because in my opinion, and I'm not sure if this is true, with PIPEDA, right, the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, I don't know if they have to go through the PIPEDA assessment and kind of go, there's any penalties they have to pay. So that would be interesting to find out, right, if that's the case, because I know PIPEDA was the real point of that was looking at data protection, looking at making sure that data that got compromised, companies now had to validate what happened, what went, how they get compromised, and if they have to pay any penalties. And I was talking to an insurance broker, a friend of mine. One of the things that he was saying that I think it was close to $75, $50 to $75 per record, people had to pay from the compromise. And what it was, I'm just trying to think it through out loud here. It was identity and credit alerts. So if their identity got stolen, or if they had to get, their credit alerts, they had to have at least 1 year of a subscription of protection from whatever company. Now, I know when it happened with Equifax, one of the challenges I heard, and it was kind of one of those like, I guess I would say is a little shady on my side, was that Equifax got compromised, but you had to pay Equifax for the credit check, right, and reporting and the ongoing tool. So you got compromised, but then you also had to pay them for the service. So it was like, I didn't know if I really liked that myself, but at least, things, from knock on wood, from what I've been hearing, has been resolved. So these are some of the things that I'm looking at, some of the things I'm going to be covering. And I'm also going to have colleagues on the podcast that are going to be able to cover these as well and talk about a little bit more in detail than myself. So it'll be really important to cover like all this information in the news. So right now it's 12:40. I've got about another 10 minutes and then I'm going to end this podcast, this live session. Like I said, I'm going to do this for about an hour every Monday. So if you're interested, put in your calendar, subscribe. I want to make sure that, we connect and share as much information when it comes to cybersecurity. Just going to see, I'm just trying to see if there's any questions here. Rod, would it be great to have a discussion? Yeah, we talked about that. So I'm just waiting for Rod to see if he has a comment on the holistic versus point fixing. That'd be good to kind of have that discussion around that. I'm going to bring it back to... So you can kind of see I'm covering a lot of information. It seems pretty quick. Just getting back into the swing and things and having some fun with this. So it's really good. Love that. Just give me a second here. I got a message here. I love that, getting back and just being able to help the community as best as I can, providing information, providing value. I think it's so important in this day and age to be connected with our community and share the security knowledge, share that we have, just because there's so much going on right now. There's so many changes, so much happening that we need to stay together and work as a team and work as colleagues. Give me a second here. Perfect. So yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I got about another 10 minutes. If anyone has any questions, I see there's a few viewers on YouTube, also on Twitch. Just kind of look over on Facebook here. Yeah, see if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitch. Again, thank you so much for coming out on your lunch hour or around your lunch hour, depending on where you are. Hey, Rod, let me know, and you guys that are commenting, let me know where you guys are watching this from, right? Are you in, North America? You're, in Europe? I'd love to see kind of where everyone's coming to as well, because it would make a difference for me when it comes to timing and scheduling as well. Okay, yeah, seeing the questions here. So yeah, that's kind of what's been going on with myself. Something I've been also working on just after hours. On Tuesdays, I don't know if you guys are interested in the CISSP. I actually have a colleague, Joel, and myself. We're actually doing a CISSP study group. So we're covering each of the domains, each of the areas there, to make sure that we have everything covered for when myself and Joel write the cybersecurity or the CISSP exam, to make sure that we're able to go over everything. I think it's important to talk about that. And then we are able to talk about, from my experience, and don't get me wrong, I'm still learning it, still covering all the information, but learning it in real world, how it relates. I'm fortunate enough that a lot of the conversations that I go through day in and day out are with senior executives, upper management, because that's what the CISSP is really all about, is looking at the top-down approach. So being able to have that conversation, learn from them what they're dealing with, what's going on with them, is really helping me study for the CISSP, because it gives you real world scenarios of how, CISOs, directors, VPs are actually implementing their security protocols and how it relates. So I'm able to have those discussions, and I'm sharing those on Tuesdays as we go through our studying. So a lot going on there. I'm just trying to think, studying, the podcast, just working with companies right now and getting out doing sales. So a lot being covered right now, a lot trying to help as many companies as I can. Rod just responded. We find a lot of companies would rather have conversations on spam solutions as an example versus top-down strategies. It's also reflected in the choices of CISO and the low years of experience, just to check that box. So some companies, not all, but some companies I'm finding, like, because of urgency, because of business needs, they've done that in the past. So I totally agree with Rod when they're saying, like, they'll have insurance. Insurance is the big one that I saw, which was kind of that little bottleneck where they would get some sort of compliance, or here's a checklist that you have to have for your security protocols. So that happens, you get $1 million or $5 million insurance, and we have that. Just check these boxes and just say that you have that. Well, then what happens is, and here's the kick in the balls for that, is what happens is then they have to make a claim. They get ransomware, they get hacked, whatever that may be. And now an auditor comes in and says, hey, you know what? Let's go through and make sure you have that. Their antivirus, their endpoint protection's out of date. Their firewall has been managed. Their ports are all open. They start going through that, and they're going like, yeah, we're not going to help you with this claim. Like, your claim's denied. And they're like, why? We had everything. Yeah, but you didn't have everything set up. You weren't managing it properly. Right. So now I'm starting to see more companies go that holistic view. They're actually going through their due diligence, their due care of their questionnaires and the things they need to do. So I'm seeing that more, Rod, on my side. Also, I'm seeing that when a smaller company works with a bigger organization, and what's happening is they're saying, you need to have these security protocols. And through those security protocols, unless you have them, we can't do business with you. And now I'm starting to see companies go, okay, like, we have to do this. We have to implement a SIM. We have to implement security, firewall, policies and procedures. We have to implement them to make sure that we meet that, because they're one of our biggest clients. And I'll use an example, and I'm just, this is just a scenario, but I've heard some companies where there's like, they have to top 1 to maybe 3 clients, or like 60% of their revenue. Some are 40, some are 60, but it's a high percentage of their revenue. And if they lost that client, then it really affect their business, and potentially some companies would actually put them under. So they have to put these security protocols in place. They have to put these measures. So now I'm starting to see more of that, where they're going, okay, instead of just checking the box, now we have to implement. It's going to take some time, but we're going to do that. Now, fortunately, the bigger companies, understand that, so they give them time to be able to do that. And they help them and support them as much as they can, giving them education, providing support in the sense of, here's the things we recommend, here's the things we do, here's contacts that we have that you'll be able to reach out to. So they're doing all that great stuff, but it's up to the small company now, not just to check the boxes, but actually do the work, right? Implement these strategies. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. Now, I don't know about you, Rod. Like, I know you're saying that, but are you seeing a shift? Are you seeing a change now? And companies now starting to look at it more holistically? Or is it from your point of view, you're still seeing that point fix? Something happens or they've been told something, so they only do that one thing. They're told that for remediation, you need to remediate your firewall, and they're just looking at just the firewall, just, upgrade that. I know it's up, maybe life cycle's up and they're going to renew it, and that's all they're going to look at right now. Is that what you're seeing, Rod? So I know for me, until Rod responds, I know for me, that's what I'm seeing right now. And the VCSOs and the people that I've talked to, I'm starting to see more of that from the VCSOs I talk to, is the holistic view, that whole roadmap, that whole plan. And they're going to companies to do it. Now, don't get me wrong, doesn't mean all companies implement the entire plan, but at least they're drawing out that plan to say, look, this is what you need for the next 12 months, right? And then they look at criticality too. They look at what's urgent you need by yesterday, and then kind of what's mid-range, and then kind of what's low-hanging fruit that it's good, it's nice for you to have, but you don't need it immediately. But the criticality, the things you need right now, if you are so open to a breach, I'm starting to see those companies kind of now take it serious, especially because of the pandemic and everything that now people have had to go under the radar. I'm starting to see that more and more where people are going, okay, you know what? This is what we need to do. And Rod's saying point fixes are way more prevalent. Practices focus holistically. So thanks, Rod, for that comment. And you know what? That's what I said. With the pandemic, I'm starting to see that shift, but hopefully it starts to shift more and more. I know, Rod, if you mind me asking, where are you? Are you in the United States? Are you in Canada? And just waiting for Rod to respond to that. I'm seeing in Canada, I'm from Toronto, I'm seeing the Canadian market start doing it. Now, speaking to both the Canadian and the U.S. market, say on my side, I'm seeing the U.S. markets it's faster to implementation. I find the Canadian market's a little bit more conservative. Not good or bad. I'm not saying it's positive or negative. I'm just saying as I'm going through it, the Canadian market is a little bit more conservative of when they look at strategies, they're taking their time and doing their due diligence and researching. Now, I'm not saying the United States market doesn't do their due diligence, but they're faster to do that. They're kind of like, you know what? We know we need this. This is what you implement. We've looked at these three things. I've got my experts internally in my team. They want this, this, and this. Let's go. Let's make that move, right? So I'm starting to see that more and more, that companies are doing that. Oh, fellow Trontonian. So I'm starting to see companies doing that more and more, where it's like the United States, they're like, okay, we've done the research, we've done our due diligence, we know what we want, we've narrowed it down to these three things, let's move. Where I find the Canadian market are a little bit slower onto that. They want to take time, they maybe want to do a proof of concept, they want to kind of do a little bit more research, they're looking at reviews, they're kind of talking to different colleagues, and it's just the process right now and just the way things are going. Now, because of the pandemic, both markets have sped up in that transition, but I'm still seeing that a little bit slower in the Toronto market. So I got another 2 minutes. Rod, do you have any other questions for me? Just looking out here. It's good to meet you, fellow Trontonian. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to see kind of what you're working on, what's going on in your world. Just looking at see if there's any more comments on LinkedIn, on Facebook. No, I think we're good there. So I want to say thanks to everyone that's come out, that's watched this the live podcast. This is the first kind of real one right now for this series. I've done a few tests. You'll probably find some on YouTube, but this is actually the first one of this series that it's really going to start going on. I'm going to have it on DailyCyber.ca. You guys can watch, or so you can listen on there, and then there's the social links that you can go check it on YouTube. You can check it on. You're going to be able to see, I think, on LinkedIn as well. I'm just trying to see if there's any other social sites that are on there. But yeah, you can subscribe there and check it out. So a lot going on. Here myself working on a lot of things, trying to get as much information out, try to help as much as I can. I know if you receive a call from me or you hear me follow up, if you see kind of an email from me or an outreach, just let you know I'm actually trying to help. I'm actually trying to provide value just like I'm doing right now and just help you guys out as much as possible, just because I know the challenges that are going on with the pandemic and people that I've talked to. It's something that's personal to me. It's something that I really feel that companies, and colleagues are just looking for help and looking to be able to find any type of solution or security needs that they can, and just be able to have a conversation right now and be able to protect each other. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So yeah, if you get an email, get a call from me, just to know that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I'm going to finish off here. Just give me a second here. So guys, I really like to thank you for coming out, watching my podcast. Again, make sure you subscribe to the Daily Cyber, wherever that may be. If it's on Facebook, if it's on, mostly watch it on YouTube or LinkedIn right now. Probably be transitioning off Facebook slowly, but if on YouTube, on LinkedIn, you can go to dailycyber.ca and check it out there. And I want you to remind you, right, software is hackable, being connected is vulnerable. I'll see you next Daily Cyber.